You're listening to the Kelly+Partners Investment Office Podcast, where you'll hear directly from some of Australia's leading CEOs of private companies that are in a high growth phase where we've taken an investment position. Well, welcome to the Kelly+Partners Investment Office Podcast, where today we're joined by a terrific entrepreneur, Peta Shulman, who is the founder of GoodnessMe and GoodnessMe Box. Good morning, Peta.
Good morning, Brett. Thanks for having me.
I'm joined by Anoop, Kalra, our Chief Investment Officer. Good morning, Anoop.
Good morning, Brett. Morning, Peta.
Morning.
So terrific opportunity to get some of Australia's tremendous entrepreneurial talent where we've made investments to share their stories. And I'll start with you, Peta, to say, hey, can you tell us about your personal background and what led you to your current role and current sort of venture?
My background actually started out in PR, in the health and wellness landscape. But what actually led me to start GoodnessMe was I got quite sick during that time. And this carried on for a number of years until I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And it was quite a frustrating few years leading up to that point. And I was told there was nothing I could do to look after myself other than go to hospital once a month for these antibody protein transfusions. At that age, I think I was, 21 at the time. I didn't really want to, 24. I didn't want to live like that. And I decided to start digging and looking for another way. And that led me to cutting out processed and artificial ingredients from my food to try to reduce the inflammation in my body. And this whole world opened up to me because I went into the supermarkets and couldn't find products made with natural ingredients. Everything had something artificial or chemical in it. And then it led to this experience of discovering these products in a health food store. But what was so amazing about it was these products actually tasted really good as well. And so my PR brain was, why do not more people know about these products? And I started feeling better. My test results started showing better results and improvements over a few months. And I wanted to get other people just as excited about these brands. And so that's how GoodnessMe Box was born, which was a subscription sampling service for all these products and as well as a marketing platform for these brands.
Terrific. So it's a wonderful personal story driving you to make a difference. So where do you think, when you, I guess, as you were sort of working that out for yourself, did you ever envisage it would turn into a business?
I mean, at a certain point, I thought that there's a business idea here and I started working on a business plan. So absolutely, I wanted to profile these brands and help them get the word out there. But I also wanted consumers to see that there are better options out there and better for you foods that do taste good, because I think when people think of health food, often they might think that the taste level is also compromised. So as much as it's great about how you feel, the taste is also really important to get others just as excited about it. And so I started working on this business plan to do the subscription sampling service. And it was a great way, to get it off the ground for the brands, as well as, building an audience and a community who were getting started on their health journey.
So you're literally starting off by just grabbing the brands that you're finding, making great products that personally resonated with you, throwing them in a box. I remember one of the early ones, and sending them out to people.
Yeah, so I got on the phone to a few brands, cold called them, convinced them to get on board with the idea. I mean, the great thing about the business is we actually work on an exchange basis with brands. So we receive the products free of charge, and in return, we give them a really great marketing campaign. But for the business idea to work, I also had to build a community, because without one or the other, it doesn't work. So I put a marketing plan in place, and really we had quite an amazing start to the business. In the first 2 weeks, had over 10,000 people on Instagram, sold out then for 6 months consecutively. So we managed to build a community quite quickly, which was great.
Amazing. And then in terms of your people, how did you, how important has it been to bring people into your team, and how have you, especially early on when you didn't have the financial resources, how did you gather the people that you needed and keep them excited about your journey?
Yeah, sure. And when you say people, you mean team members?
Yeah, your team members. Yeah.
So that obviously grew gradually over time, but I suppose with team members, often we found that a lot of them have been incoming because they've seen the business out there and been really passionate about our purpose and our why. So, I started in the beginning with a virtual assistant overseas when customer service got out of hand, but then that led to getting a marketing manager on board, an ops manager, and it just sort of snowballed from there. So I find that attitude's really important when we are getting our team members on board. I find, retaining your team members is probably the harder part of that, and keeping them motivated and keeping them challenged, and showing them that you really do care about them and their growth, because at the end of the day, I see my job is about getting the best out of them as well.
But Peter, just shifting over to the business a little bit, in a world where there are, real physical health food stores and also online players, what is it about GoodnessMe that is unique, which is why you think the business is going to succeed?
Yeah, sure. I think the health food market has had such an interesting time the last few years. So if you look at the big supermarkets, there is such a lack of consumer trust out there for what's healthy and what's not. It's incredibly confusing. And for the brands, there's a lot of red tape as well to speak to the customer. And then we found that a lot of the independent health food stores haven't survived over the last few years. And unfortunately, looking into that, it's largely due to, how spread out the population is in Australia as well. A whole foods model would be amazing here, but doesn't seem to work. And then you look at the online space and it is incredibly fragmented. There's no one big brand owning a space. And over the last 8 years, we've built such a trusted brand with the customer. We also have a subscription service, which is a great feeder for bringing customers into our online shop, which we launched last year. So it really gives us that advantage to know what's trending. We know from the brand's new product developments, and we know what's going on in terms of consumer sentiment out there and what products they like, because our customers are incentivized to review products in a subscription box. So that really gives us as an edge to really own the space online, and we just see such a huge opportunity out there.
So when we think about the opportunity, Peter, how big is the opportunity potentially for the company? How far penetrated are you? And where do you want the business to be over the kind of medium to longer term?
Yeah. So we look at the health food package industry. It's a $17 billion market. And so we've really only scratched the surface. And then on top of that, you see that online grocery shopping is set to double by 2025. So there's a long way to go for that. At the end of the day, we really want to be the largest online health retailer in the country, but also brand marketing platform. We do both, and we exist, to service both the consumers and the brands. Yeah, ultimately, that's where we want to go.
And so when you think about the business over, 5 to 10 years, how big a business do you think GoodnessMe has the potential to be?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I see that, it's the food market, in excess of 100 mil, there's absolutely potential there. More and more people are going to be shopping online. We always say, as a nation, we are overfed and undernourished, and consumers are becoming so much more ingredient savvy. The health system essentially can't go on how we are at this stage. So yeah, there's just an enormous opportunity out there.
We're really, really excited about the opportunity for the business. And I think like you mentioned, the sample box feeder of customers gives GoodnessMe such a unique advantage over other online retailers of health foods, because you get the customers when they're just starting off on their journey. And I think that's really, really quite unique. And like you said, there's been a lot of change in the industry that's occurred in health food retailing, where you had the likes of Woolies trying Thomas Starks and then Macro, and they just haven't been able to make a physical retail model work. You combine that with the fragmentation and the increased volume of product that's actually coming in, and I think that the category is so uniquely positioned for an online retailer to really own the space.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, as you said, there's so much new product development going on with brands, but it is so competitive and difficult for them to break through in the supermarkets. You know, a lot of the supermarkets make a large chunk of their money from co-op advertising. And how does a smaller player come in and get that shelf space, or even just that eye level on the shelf, to break through and be seen? It's really, really tough for them.
It's a nice, we were doing the other day, I had a conversation, Peter, with another business, and they're in sort of homewares now, but their core business was greeting cards. And what they pioneered is taking art from Australian artists, putting it on greeting cards. And as they built that business, what it allowed them to do, a greeting card is low cost to produce. And then as they saw what greeting cards were selling, it's those greeting cards that they've then produced on further products and built out this sort of homewares range. There's a great concept from Jim Collins, a sort of world-renowned management thinker, where he says first shoot bullets and then shoot cannonballs. And so I saw your sampling box as a way for, first bullets, where you can find out through that service really what are the products, what are the trends for really no cost to your business that the consumers are really interested in, and then really champion those through your online platform so that you're much more relevant to a consumer.
Yeah, that's it. It works as a really great testing ground. And there's so many things to consider when, if a product's going to work or not. Everything down from taste, price point, packaging, are the ingredients or the function of the product too difficult for the consumer to understand. So when we send out the box, our audience receives a questionnaire with 6 questions to answer about the product, and that data really is valuable not only to us but to the brand as well, to help them improve and grow.
And how does a brand pay for that service? So if I want to get my product into the subscription box, what's the deal for the brand?
Yeah, sure. So they provide the product free of charge, and in exchange, we'll look after everything. So the product arrives, we send it out to sample, and then we'll also do a marketing campaign throughout all our channels, be it EDM, social media. We've got an amazing influencer network, quite a large nutritionist network as well. And then they also receive the market research at the end of the campaign. So there's a whole lot of value there provided in the way of marketing, but it's essentially a partnership.
Yep, and minimum quantities?
We start at 3,000. So that's our minimum to start at. And I suppose what's really important about the service is the experience as well. And you've got to keep it novel each month as well. So it's important to have a mix of those smaller brands as well to keep that experience there.
Yeah, so great. So we've, for our audience, a number of times I've got the boxes sent to different team members, and the feedback has always been great, because as somebody to share with your team within your business, it's a really novel and different gift to give somebody that says, hey, we care about how you look after your health, and here's a sort of path on that journey, which is really cool. So short, medium, long-term goals from a business perspective, where do you see the thing? Are you a goal setter? Do you have a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan? If the future looks as you would like it to look, what does it look like? Paint us a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, we're really focused on range expansion as well, which is really important. But this financial year, we're set to 3x the business, and the goal is to really continue on that scale and grow as well. It's all about acquiring new customers, new eyeballs on the website, but creating that ritual for the customers. So how do we become eventually, long-term part of that weekly shop for the customer? And we think that the ritual's really key there as well. But ultimately, looking at that 5 to 10 year mark, it's that $100 million goal that you mentioned. How do we get that growth to get there at that point? It's not an easy journey, but for us, we're really putting a lot of effort into the marketing at this stage to acquire new customers and building that brand further.
And Peter, I think earlier you touched on a really interesting point, how all the products on the website are actually nutritionist rated. Can you just talk about how that sets the business apart compared to other players and what it means for a customer that's actually using the website?
Yeah, sure. For us, it was really important that we take the guesswork out of choosing what's healthy and what's not for the customer, because ultimately reading ingredients is difficult and it is confusing. And so one of our points of difference is that we get our team of nutritionists to review all the products on the shop. And that's really important to give the customer a guide where this sits on the scale of healthy eating. And that's something that we don't see any other retailers doing. We want to be seen as a really trusted brand. And unfortunately, the food industry out there really pay a lot of money to invest in marketing and convince you that something's healthy when in fact it might not be. And when I say healthy, it's about being better for you and nutrient dense at the end of the day. So even something like the health star rating out there is something that I personally don't agree with how they've worked that out. It has nothing to do with the actual nutrients of the food. It's a mathematical equation that they've worked out based on the nutritional panel. So the word health in itself is confusing and can mean different things to different people. So for us, it's about how do you find that better for you option.
It's very exciting times for the business looking forward, Peta.
Thank you.
And we're excited to be on the journey with you.
Right, so we very excited.
Very cool. So Peta, I've seen some of these apps where you can scan food. So one of the charities that we're involved with called Cancer Schmancer out of the US, the founder of that business had a cancer experience and then, similar to you, sort of went on this journey to say, how do I detox my life and get rid of household products that cause cancer and find food that is better for you. So there's now a lot of apps around that allow you to scan food and scan household products that show you, essentially how toxic these things are for you. How are you going to use technology to allow me to walk through the supermarket or other places and scan products that I find, send them back to you? Where do you see the sort of digital future of the business so that it's just easier for me when I'm trying to eat well and I'm trying to buy things that aren't toxic?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think my phone can help me, but I'm not sure how.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I have seen an app like that for gluten-free products as well, which was really helpful. So I suppose part of our nutritionist reviews is important to us because we want to create some kind of rating out there. And I did touch on the health star rating earlier, which a lot of people do rely on, but I think it's fundamentally flawed at this point. But I think there's a lot of data that we acquire to give some kind of rating to help you assess a food product out there. And as I said, our goals, we want to take the guesswork out of choosing what's healthy and what's not. And that's where all our feedback data can help from the nutritionists. From our customers, though, in the way of like new product development, we see that as really critical. And we do work with a lot of big food companies as well. It's also about them doing better and how they can, produce products that are made with better ingredients. So ultimately, we just want to see less and less artificial ingredients and chemicals in the food.
Yeah, it's great. And I think there is, genuine alignment between, what the customers want and great businesses are committed to paying attention to their customers, which is, I think prevalent everywhere. Hey, now, final question. I always love to ask people a motto, quote, or thought that best summarizes your approach to life and business.
Yeah. So I love, there's this TED Talk by Angela Duckworth. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but she talks a lot about grit, which I love. And she says grit is living life like it's a marathon and not a sprint. And I think that's something I've always kept in mind over the last few years. Definitely have long-term goals for the business. And yeah, it's just about sticking with it and having that grit.
Yeah, fantastic. So great to have the time to share. And for our listeners, we wanted as a fund to make sure that our investors can meet the people behind the businesses that we're investing in, because we know that so much of a business is driven by the values and behaviours of the people that are running them and that have founded them. And so, Peta, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to chat.
Thanks, Peta. Thank you for listening to the Kelly+Partners Investment Office Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and found it informative and interesting to learn about our investee companies. If you love this episode, don't forget to follow us and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. As Brett says, have a great day.